Elizabeth Strout is living out every fiction writer's dream. Her first novel, Amy and Isabelle, is a winning story about a young girl's sexual awakening and her relationship with her mother. 10 years in the making, Strout's persistence has finally paid off. It has been optioned for television, is now on the New York Times expanded list, and has been back to press twice. I am pleased to have her here for a conversation about a first novel that gets this kind of attention. How long have you wanted to write this novel?
I wanted to write that novel probably for about 10 years, but it took me a long time to figure. I've certainly wanted to write a novel all my life,
right,
since my earliest memory.
Right.
But it took me quite some time to find out that it would be this novel, to find the story that needed to be told and that would eventually get told.
What's the story?
The story is essentially about secrets and private passions of everyday people, but it does center around a single mother and her teenage daughter, and the teenage daughter has become involved sexually with her high school teacher. And when the mother discovers this, of course, she is very upset and a crisis ensues, and they have to figure out how they're going to deal with each other after that. And the mother's own secrets come out as a result of this, and there is other people in this town, and they have their secrets, and
knowing a little bit about you, you wanted to write about ordinary people.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I'm just ordinary. That's what I know. I just have always lived just, I'm very, very everyday, and that's what I know. You write what you know.
The story itself comes from where?
The story itself was actually inspired by one particular scene that was completely imagined, and it's the scene, I'm not going to be specific about it because I don't want to give anything away, but it was a scene where the mother is punishing her daughter for this act, and she punishes her in a particularly humiliating way. And I saw that very clearly for quite some time before I was able to understand that would be where the story came from, because if I had that scene, then I had to find out who the daughter was and why was she hanging around this teacher, what was that all about, and then who was the mother and why would she respond in that particular kind of way, and what was that all about. And so then
And how did you find all that out in your imagination?
By spending time with these characters, going to the page every day and spending time with Amy and with Isabelle and with the women that Isabelle worked with, and just finding out by writing about them. Your
editor was an editor at the New Yorker magazine who moved over to Random House.
That's
correct?
right.
You had written for the New Yorker?
I had not at that time written for the New Yorker. I had written stories for many, many years, and I had sent them to Dan Menaker at the New Yorker, and he had rejected them all, but he'd been very nice about it.
And he wrote you a famous rejection letter.
Right, he was very encouraging about it.
And then when he became a Random House editor, and he's a novelist, he's a writer himself.
Right, at that point I had lost contact with him because I'd been working on the novel for so long and not doing short stories, but I had heard that he had gone over to Random House, so I asked him, if he'd read it.
After how much rejection?
Well, it had been rejected by a number of agents. I couldn't even find an agent who was willing to take it on. Some agents had been real interested, and then at the end they backed out.
Have you heard from them since this became so successful? No, not a word of "I was wrong" and "good luck." None of that.
No.
What was the hardest thing about doing this? Not getting a publisher, but writing it itself.
The hardest thing was worrying that I wouldn't really be able to find out who Isabelle especially was. All the characters...
The mother.
Yeah, the mother was very difficult for me to get to know. Writing the book was a process of getting to know.
You're a mother.
Well, yes, but Isabelle, yes, I am a mother, but I was writing about Isabelle.
Right, and a different mother.
Isabelle's a made-up mother. Now, certainly I would draw on my own experience as a mother and a daughter. I am
book
both.
Is dedicated, dedicated to your daughter.
Yes, Zarina.
Yeah, for Zarina. How old is your daughter?
Well, she's now 15.
Now, would you allow her to read this?
Oh, yes, she's quite free to read it, but she's chosen not to.
Really?
Yeah, she just said she'll do it when she gets around to it.
Now, is there something here more than I want to know? I mean, is it because she doesn't want to see what you've been writing, or because what?
I don't really know.
Is it just the nature of a relationship with a mother saying?
Well, I don't know. I think she's just very involved with her own life right now, and
she's got other things.
She's got other things to do.
Yeah.
Really, quite frankly, she's very, very much has other things to do. But she told me the other day that her friend, right, that her friend got hold of the book and
said you got to read your mom's book.
No, they took it to the coffee shop.
This book is hot. Go home and read your mother's book.
She read it aloud to this group of girls with my daughter at the coffee shop, the sex scene, and they all laughed. And my daughter was telling me this, and I was really sort of embarrassed. And I said, well, I hope that didn't embarrass you. And she said, oh no, it was funny. And then, of course, I was doubly embarrassed because I thought, what was so funny about it? But yeah.
Seeing this.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
It's a little unreal still, actually, because I saw that in paper form for years and years and years, stacked up on my dining room table, and so it's still a little strange to realize that it got tucked into some covers.
And the success is beyond your expectation.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful because writing is so solitary. And then to actually have people responding to me and saying, oh, I loved it when, Isabelle did this or whatever, and people telling me, I had to lock myself in the broom closet at work, somebody told me, so I could finish this book. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
And
good.
Oprah has optioned this for one of her Oprah Presents things?
Yes, Harpo Films. Yes.
Much success to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Amy and Isabelle, a first novel, Elizabeth Strout. We thank you for joining us. This is one of a series of programs about books, the world of authors and writers and critics and reviewers, and the way that books are for us all an insight into our culture. They are about every subject imaginable. What is the human conversation? It is about books. It is about sports and paintings, and it is about stories of ordinary people, the extraordinary lives that ordinary people live, in which they experience all of the emotions that Shakespeare wrote about, as well as Elizabeth Strout. So we thank you for joining us for this inaugural journey of ours on a book, a show dedicated to books. We'll see you next time.